Joe's great-grandparents, Joseph Eckel and his wife Frances of Germany, Vincent Simmel and his wife Anna of Austria, and John Hervol and his wife Mary Frances of Austria, were born and lived in a tumultuous political time for the Austrian and German people. The Catholic religion was under attack by the rising socialist governments, and men were being forced into military service. Famine, overpopulation, and industrialization caused European farmland to become scarce and expensive. By the 1890s, steam-powered ships replaced sailing vessels and cut the time of Atlantic crossings from 3 months to about 2 weeks. Joe's ancestors were among the wave of immigrants that steamed out of Europe, headed to America, the land of freedom and opportunity. In 1890, Joe's grandfather, Frank Xavier Simmel, and his grandmother, Mary Anna Eckel, immigrated to America. They settled and lived in Iowa for 30 years, where their family grew to include Joseph Frank, Mary Teresa, Joe's mother, Xavier, Frances, Rose, Anna, Martha, and Henry. Sometime before 1920, Frank Xavier, Mary Anna, and their young children moved to Texas. In 1899, Joe's father, Frank Joseph Hervol, was serving in the Austrian army as an interpreter. He was fluent in 9 of the different dialects spoken in the Austrian area. He chose to leave the army to immigrate to America. In 1908, 32-year-old Frank Joseph was working in Enterprise, Iowa as a coal miner, where he met and married 16-year-old Mary Teresa Simmel in Des Moines. They began their family while living in Iowa. Frances Mary was born in 1908, Josephine Carolyn was born in 1910, and Maria Elizabeth was born in 1912. Sometime in 1913, Frank Joseph and Mary Teresa packed up their girls and moved to Texas, where they continued to enlarge their family. Louis Edward was born in 1914. Joseph Michael in 1916. Frank Albert in 1918. John Henry in 1920. Rose Grace was born in 1921. Pauline Angela in 1923. Cecilia Ann in 1925, and Martha Catherine in 1927. In 1936, Frank Joseph moved his family to the Deming, New Mexico area to acquire land through homesteading. In spite of the many difficulties Frank Joseph encountered, he and Mary Teresa farmed, raised their children, and became active members of the Holy Family Church. Joe met Eva Birdie Burton, and they were married on April the 26th, 1941. Here is Joe's account of when he first met Eva.
The first time I ever met her, I met her in the drugstore. And I was drinking a Coke or something other, and I seen her in there. The next time she told me where she lived. I said, can I take you home? No. She said, I'll stay with these girls here in town. And then she said, well, it's too early in the evening. I said, I can come back later. But I said, it'll be late. And we and her run around together a little while. And I got married.
After the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 8, 1941, America joined the Allies to fight against the Axis in World War II. Joe felt the need to serve his country, and he enlisted in the Army at Fort Bliss, Texas, on March 8, 1942. When Frank Joseph, Joe's father, said goodbye to Joe at the train station, he began to cry and told Joe he would never see him again. On July 24, 1942, while Joe was serving in the Army overseas, Frank Joseph was struck by lightning while plowing his fields. Joe could not return to attend his father's funeral. While serving in the war, Joe was stationed on some of the small islands near Japan for 3 years. When the Japanese began to attack, he and his fellow soldiers had not yet been issued weapons. Joe said, I thought we were going to have to hit them Japs over the head with our shovels. When the war was over, Joe returned home to Eva. In 1947, he purchased a farm southwest of Deming. The same year, he and his brother Frank also purchased a ranch they called the Home Place. Joe was a great farmer, but ranching was his true passion. He loved anything and everything related to ranching.
Joe and Eva were active members of the Holy Family Catholic Church, and the love they shared was always obvious to everyone that knew them. They began their family when Mike was born in 1953, and Ruby Jean was born in 1958.
Joe's mother, Mary Teresa, passed away in 1958 after a long fight with cancer in the nursing home section of the Demings Women's Hospital. Joe lost his brother Louis in 1971 and his sister Josephine in 1981. David came into Joe and Eva's life in 1983. Joe's siblings continued to pass away. His sister Frances in 1986 and John in 1991 and Marie in 1995. His brother Frank died in 1996 and his sister Pauline in 1999. Joe lost the love of his life when Eva passed away in 1999. The last of Joe's sisters passed away. Cecilia died in 2002, Rose in 2003, and Martha in 2012. Joe is the last of Frank Joseph and Mary Teresa's 11 children to join the family in heaven. He is fortunate to join so many wonderful and loving people in everlasting happiness. We will all miss him here on earth, but Joe will be very happy if heaven resembles a ranch with tall grass and grazing cattle. When the train to heaven arrives, Joe's father, Frank Joseph, will be crying tears of joy instead of the tears of sorrow he cried when Joe boarded the train to fight in World War II.